Thank you, Senator. Mr. Secretary, nice to see you again. Thank you for being here. Let's keep talking about this disinformation board if we could. The fact sheet from DHS on the disinformation board that you recently released defined disinformation this way: false information spread with the intent to deceive or mislead. You agree with that, I assume? That's your definition?
Yes, I believe that's the definition
on the fact sheet.
Broadly held.
And you think it's important that the U.S. government combat this disinformation, right? I mean, you've testified to that.
Senator, what I testified to is when disinformation
threatens national security,
threat to the security of our homeland, then we are engaged.
Okay, all right, good. And I presume that's why you've set up this disinformation board. So let's have a look at the person whom you've selected to head this new disinformation policing effort, and let's look at what she has been spreading online. She has, for starters, consistently misinformed the public about the Hunter Biden laptop story and spread the lie that it was Russian propaganda. Here she is on October the 14th saying, disinformation experts say there are multiple red flags that raise doubts about their authenticity, meaning the emails, including questions about whether the laptop actually belongs to Hunter Biden. Of course, as it turns out, that's totally false. This laptop has been authenticated both by government entities and by independent news organizations. She went on, here she is again, the same interview, saying that we should view it, meaning the laptop and apparently the whole story, as a Trump campaign product. That is also a lie, which you know. It's not a Trump campaign product. It never was a Trump campaign product. But she didn't stop there. Here she is on October the 22nd in 2020, this time taking to social media, saying that Biden notes 50 former NatSec officials and 5 former CIA heads that believe the laptop is a Russian influence op. Laundering here, using former government officials to launder the lie that this was in fact a Russian influence op, which of course is not true at all. Here she is also on October the 22nd, still on social media, this time saying the emails don't need to be altered to be part of an influence campaign. Of course, they weren't altered. Voters deserve that context, not a fairy tale about a laptop repair shop. Of course, we know the only person in all of this telling a fairy tale is Ms. Jankowicz on social media repeatedly for days and days on end. How about a different set of examples? She has consistently spread false and misleading claims about the Steele dossier, which we now know was actually itself a piece of Russian propaganda. Here she is on December the 8th, 2017, responding, by the way, to United States Senator. She's responding to Lindsey Graham. She says to him, your party funded the dossier first. The FBI was investigating Trump since the summer, but didn't make it public. The American public deserved to know. This is false. The people who funded the dossier were the Clinton campaign, which we now know. This has been verified. This is outright falsehoods. But she didn't stop there. Here she is on August the 7th, 2020, promoting Christopher Steele, the stooge who helped launder Russian propaganda, including lying to the FBI about it. Here she is lauding him as a trustworthy and legitimate source. Classic disinformation. She says she listened to this last night. Chris Steele, yes, that Chris Steele, providing great historical context about the evolution of disinformation. At every turn, Mr. Secretary, she has used social media and the public to launder propaganda herself. She's also advocated for law enforcement to be involved in policing speech online. Here she is in an NPR interview this year, just a few weeks ago, April 16th, 2022. This is Ms. Jankowicz, and I quote, I shudder to think about if free speech absolutists were taking over more platforms. We need platforms to do more, and we frankly need law enforcement and our legislatures to do more as well. And then she goes on to praise legislation in other countries that involves policing speech. Or here she is on February 17th of 2021 saying that the free speech versus censorship dichotomy is false and calling herself in a TikTok video the Mary Poppins of disinformation, where she sings that members of Congress shouldn't be permitted to spread misinformation on the floor, and otherwise taking to task those who propagate views she disagrees with. Here's my question to you. If your intent was to combat misinformation online or in the government, why on God's green earth would you nominate someone who is a human geyser of misinformation?
Senator, I am ultimately responsible for the hiring of Ms. Jankowicz to be the executive director of the Disinformation Governance Board. In my capacity as the secretary,
why did you choose her?
I bear responsibility for that. I understand that she is an expert in disinformation.
Yes, indeed, spreading it.
And she will have an obligation to execute her responsibilities in a nonpartisan way.
Were you aware of these? Were you aware of this information when you chose her? Everything I've just shown you?
I was not.
How could you not be? Did you do any research on her?
Senator, I will not discuss the internal workings of the hiring process.
You won't?
Of the Department of Homeland Security.
Well, let me ask you about this. I'm sure there are documents pertaining to this board, minutes of meetings, communications about who would serve on the board. Will you release those to this committee?
Senator, there are not yet this governance board.
Wait a minute. There are no minutes of meetings about this board?
It is not yet.
You've not created any records?
It has not yet begun its work.
You've hired her. You surely had deliberations about hiring her.
The board has not yet met.
You had deliberations about hiring her, though, correct?
I did not, Senator.
You just said that you are solely responsible for hiring her.
In my capacity as the secretary, I bear responsibility.
You're telling me that there are no documents associated with this board?
That I don't know. You asked for meeting
minutes of meetings, documents pertaining to the board, any records of communications about who would serve on the board. Will you turn those over to this committee? Any document pertaining to this board, will you turn it over to this committee?
Senator, we owe you documents with respect to the work of this board that already are in existence.
So you'll turn them all over. You will turn those documents over to this committee.
Unless there's a legal basis for us not to do so, Senator, I will follow up with my colleagues on that.
Wait a minute. You started to say yes, but then you just
No,
turned. Is that a yes or is that's a maybe? I'll get back to you later.
Senator, I owe openness and transparency with this committee, and we will produce the documents that you have requested unless there's a legal prohibition of us doing so.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I could just conclude, Mr. Chairman, here's the last thing I'll say on this, Mr. Secretary. We have 2 million unauthorized migrants who crossed the border last year during the calendar year. We have 245,390 illegal crossings just this year in the Rio Grande Valley. And your priority is setting up a board and hiring someone who has gone to TikTok to talk about stopping speech she doesn't like, who has mocked voters, supporters of the last president. That has been your priority. To say that your priorities are misplaced, I think, is a dramatic understatement. And the time has come, I think, Mr. Secretary, for you to resign. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More seriously, can we come back to this disinformation board? You said earlier this week on CNN that Ms. Jankowicz was absolutely neutral. Those are your words. Politically, absolutely neutral. Do you stand by that?
Senator, she has an obligation to be nonpartisan and neutral in the execution of her responsibilities in her current position in the Department of Homeland Security. She has an obligation to be that, and if she fails in that obligation, there will be consequences.
Well, let's take a look at how she's been doing. Here is Ms. Jankowicz again, talking about her political opponents. I guess she refers to them as, views them as. She says, Trump talking about how he would put out the fire in Portland is the language of authoritarianism. It means the violent clearing of protesters, arrest without cause, abuse of human rights. That's not law enforcement. That's lawlessness. That was September 29th, 2020. Or here's another selection out of many I could have chosen from her book, a book she wrote, also published in 2020. She says this, quoting, "The president's supporters in Congress are homegrown purveyors of disinformation." These would be the people that people in my state, for instance, have elected. They do not want to remind the American people of these inconvenient truths. They choose instead to shout lies through a megaphone, capitalizing on their constituents' unfamiliarity, ambivalence, or polarization.
So I'm not going to provide a name of
Why not? You're here to answer our
this
questions.
forum. I'm not going to provide names of.
You stated in your testimony, you said, I am here today to answer your questions.
That is correct.
Answer the question.
I'm not going to provide names of our personnel.
Why not?
Today.
The American people are demanding these answers from you today, Ms. Cheadle.
I will do the best to provide you accurate information based on the facts that I have at this time.
You're not answering our questions. The advance element coordinates with other intel or law enforcement partners, identifies threats and weaknesses at the sites and movements. We'd like a copy of the advance report. Have you brought it here with you today?
We will comply with the request for the documentation that has been requested.
When will that be, Ms. Cheadle? Because you should have brought it today.
I am certain that our personnel are working on obtaining all of that documentation.
I don't believe you, and neither do the people watching this hearing. You're not doing well, as Mr. Moskowitz informed you. You've been sitting here for over 3 hours, and I have you know the entire country is demanding you resign and demanding that you be fired if you do not resign. Things are not going well for you. You need to answer the questions. Was there a protective intelligence team, and what technical resources were utilized for that event, specifically drone or helicopter assets?
There were a number of technical assets that were deployed for that event, and there was a protective intelligence team that was assigned to that event.
Why was Crooks able to fly a drone over the entire area the day of the rally and the day of his assassination attempt?
To my knowledge, he did not fly the drone over the entire area.
How did he fly a drone over the area, period? Any part of the area?
Again, I would have to go back and check the timeline of when that took place and when the event.
Why didn't you bring the timeline with you today to answer our questions?
I don't have all of the answers on the timelines based on the criminal investigation.
Were you not prepared today to answer our questions?
I am prepared to answer the questions based on the information and wanted to be able to provide.
Do you have a timeline do you have a timeline at all from any of the day?
I have a timeline that does not have specifics.
That's shocking. That is absolutely unacceptable. That means you are a failure at your job. Let's talk about things that are prohibited in Trump rallies. And I've been to a lot of Trump rallies. Backpacks and bags, bicycles, firearms, any type of weapon, or any other item determined to be a potential safety hazard, like a range finder would be one. At 5:10, Crooks is first observed by one of the snipers, AGR Sniper 1, at the building. 5:10, President Trump was shot in the face at 6:11 p.m. 5:28, AGR Sniper 1 takes a picture of a bicycle and 2 bags. Those belong to Crooks. 5:32, AGR Sniper 1 spots Crooks looking at his phone and using a rangefinder. 5:55, Butler ESU Command confirms receipt of photos and states they have been relayed on. 6:05 p.m., AGR Sniper 1 later communicates that Crooks is seen moving northeast in direction of Sheets and that Crooks has a backpack. 2 minutes before the shooting, while President Trump has been allowed to take the stage, people see Crooks laying on his stomach in a sniper position on the roof, and they're yelling he has a gun, and they are trying to alert law enforcement and Secret Service. Why was Crooks not shot by the snipers? Why was he allowed to be there?
As soon as the individual was identified as a threat, they were...
No. What do you consider to be a threat? A man with a gun laying in a sniper position, a man that had a backpack, a man that had a bicycle, a man that had a rangefinder. At what point is he determined a threat?
An individual with a backpack is not a threat. An individual with a rangefinder is not a threat.
What about a man laying on a building that has direct line of sight of President Trump with a gun that people are screaming and pointing out? Is that a threat, Ms. Cheadle?
Once that individual was identified, They were neutralized.
No, they were neutralized. Crooks was neutralized after he shot President Trump in the face, Ms. Cheadle. Is he only a threat once he fires the weapon?
As soon as the counter sniper identified that individual, they were able to neutralize them.
How were people in the crowd? Okay, then let's just take it this way. People under your command did not consider him to be a threat, yet people in the crowd knew he had a gun and considered him to be a threat. That means that you are a complete failure as the director of the Secret Service, that people under your command don't perceive a man laying on a roof with direct line to the president with a gun. They don't perceive that to be a threat, yet the people in the crowd do. How is that possible?
I have to say, Director, we're pretty close to the halfway point during this. You answered more questions with an ABC reporter than you have with members of Congress. So we have a lot more questions. The American people are demanding that we get answers to those questions, and that's what the purpose of this hearing is today. So I'm sure a lot of the questions that have already been asked are going to be asked again, and hopefully we can get some answers to those questions. I strongly implore you to answer those questions. You're here with a subpoena, and we expect you to answer the questions. Chair now recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Cheadle, the American people are watching, and they're wondering if there are any questions you can answer honestly today. So, Director Cheadle, I have a series of questions, very specific questions. I want very specific answers. Most of my questions are going to demand a yes or no answer. Do you understand?
I do.
Okay, my first question. Both sides of the aisle today have asked for your resignation. Would you like to use my 5 minutes to draft your resignation letter, yes or no?
No, thank you.
Was this a colossal failure?
It was a failure.
Yes or no? Was it a colossal failure is the question, yes or no?
I have admitted this is a terrible.
This is a yes or no series of questions. Was this a colossal failure, yes or no?
Yes.
Was this tragedy preventable, yes or no?
Yes.
Has the Secret Service been transparent with this committee?
Yes.
Would you say the fact that we had to issue a subpoena to get you to show up today as being transparent, yes or no?
I have always been eager
Yes
to
or no?
come
You didn't
and
want to
talk
answer
to
the question.
committee.
We had to issue a subpoena to get you to show up today. That is not transparent, by the way. You stated earlier, Secret Service is not political. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say leaking your opening statement to Punchbowl News, Politico's Playbook, and Washington Post several hours before you sent it to this committee as being political, yes or no?
I have no idea how my statement got out.
Well, that's bullshit. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record articles by Punchbowl News, Political Playbook, Washington Post, all done at 5:24 a.m., 6:12 a.m., 6:34 a.m., a solid 3 to 4 hours before this committee got your statement.
Without objection, so ordered.
Okay. Is the Secret Service fully cooperating with our committee?
Yes.
Okay, you say you're fully cooperating with this committee. On July 15th, this committee sent you a list of demands of information that we wanted. Has the Secret Service provided this committee a complete list of all law enforcement personnel that were there that day? Have you done that? Have you provided a list to the Oversight Committee? Yes or no?
I will have to get back to you on that.
That is a no. Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th, yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of shit today. You're just being completely dishonest.
Mr. Chairman,
Completely dishonest.
Mr. Chairman, I want to.
Come on.
We have to maintain decorum in this committee, no matter how
have you provided
upset we
any
get.
and all memos to this committee that we've asked you on July 15th? Have you provided all memorandums within the Secret Service?
I would have to get back to you on
That is a no. You are being dishonest or lying. Like you're being dishonest here with this committee. These are important questions that the American people want answers to, and you're just dodging and talking around it in generalities. And we had to subpoena you to be here, and you won't even answer the questions. We have asked you repeatedly to answer our questions. This isn't hard. These are not hard questions. Have you provided us all communications from the Secret Service related to that day and that rally? Have you provided this committee? We've asked for this information on July 15th. Have you provided any of this information that this committee has asked of the Secret Service? Any of it?
I'll have to get back to you.
Have you even read this letter that we sent you? Did you even read this?
Yes.
Okay, and you have said you don't know, you have no idea. Well, the answer is no. We haven't gotten a single document or piece of information or data from you or your agency in related to the rally that we have asked you for. So, was this attempted assassination of Donald Trump a failure of training or execution or both?
I think that those are answers that we need to examine.
Training, execution, or both? Which one?
I think those are answers.
All right. How many Secret Service personnel have lost their jobs due to this colossal failure?
At this time, none.
How many Secret Service personnel have been required to take a refresher course on how not to let people shoot Donald Trump?
Our personnel are currently operational. We are examining the facts of this investigation, and we will make the changes necessary.
What time did law enforcement become aware that there was an individual on the roof with a clear line of sight to President Trump?
I am still verifying timelines.
Of course, 9 days in, you have no answers. How many minutes went by between the time law enforcement saw and took photos of crooks and the shooting? How many minutes?
I am still verifying timelines.
57 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Dismiss erroneous information and speculation. However, you are refusing to answer questions that we now know that you have the information for. You are saying that you are wanting to answer questions that the Secret Service has information to. Well, ma'am, you are the Secret Service. You are the director. You have said that you are the best for the job. So, I'm going to ask you some questions now knowing that you do have answers from the FBI, whom you have been passing the buck to this entire day. And I'll start with something that, you know, maybe the FBI doesn't know because it has to do with you personally. You said you spoke with President Trump after the assassination attempt. And I want to know, did you apologize to him directly for nearly having President Trump killed?
Yes, I did.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you recognize that this was your failure. Now, since the assassination attempt, you are under oath, reminding you, have you communicated with anyone at the White House on an encrypted messaging app like Signal? Yes or no?
No, I have not.
Are you willing to surrender your personal phone for analysis?
If I am required to do so.
Okay. I will look into making that request because I would like to see your personal phone to see if you're communicating over encrypted messaging apps. Have you ever turned down enhanced security requests from Donald Trump's detail, his special agent in charge, Sean Curran? Have you ever turned that down?
No, I have not.
Have there been, has your team, has the Secret Service? Maybe not you personally.
I believe, as I mentioned earlier, there are times when requests are made for
And you have denied them. They have been denied.
And a denial doesn't
Has the Trump
necessarily
campaign
mean,
made requests for additional assets that have been denied?
Denial doesn't mean vulnerability.
Have there been additional requests for enhanced security at Mar-a-Lago?
We have made a number of enhancements to
You confirmed that there were bomb-sniffing dogs that were provided. You failed to confirm if there were aerial security surveillance assets that were provided. So yes or no, was that provided?
At the rally?
At the rally, yes, ma'am.
We had Overwatch provided at the rally.
You've confirmed that the assassin was identified as suspicious 57 minutes prior to the shooting. Was the suspicious individual ever approached by an agent? Was any contact ever made with him?
Not to my knowledge.
Is that the standard protocol for someone who is identified as suspicious?
The protocol would be to locate the individual and
you said that he was located 2 to 5 times approximately?
No, I said that the information was passed potentially somewhere between 2 to 5
And he was never
times.
located by an agent?
To my knowledge, that individual was not located by an agent.
we have dozens of rally goers who have identified him, and not one agent on the ground. There are many, many, many agents on the ground, local law enforcement, Secret Service. No one was able to identify him and have sights on and see him.
What I'm saying is that the agents that were on the ground at the time, I have no knowledge that they were able to interview him or locate him.
Thank you. Was there a local law enforcement officer who approached the roof and saw the shooter and saw that he was present on the roof?
That is the information that has been shared with me.
Have you spoke to that local law enforcement officer?
No, I have not.
Are you going to?
It is part of a criminal investigation that the FBI is interviewing those individuals.
Were agents stationed on the water tower?
No.
Why?
That would not be something that would be included in a security plan.
Has the man who is reported to have been present wearing a gray suit, who allegedly requested a photo of the dead body of the assassin on top of the AGR roof, been identified?
I don't have that information.
Is that something that you've heard of?
No.
Were ATF agents present at the rally?
To attend or to work?
To work.
Not to my knowledge.
How long did the counter sniper have crooks in his sights before the shooter opened fire on President Trump?
I don't have that specific timeline.
Will you be able to tell us if he communicated with other agents on what he was seeing through his sights?
Once I have that information, absolutely.
Because we need to know why he waited for multiple rounds to be fired at President Trump before the threat was neutralized. We need to know if he was given an order to hold fire. Now, it's you've excused the roof of being unmanned because of the slope of the roof. Do you continue to assert the slope of the roof as a credible reason for leaving this position undefended?
First, I'll go back and correct that there was no order to hold fire. Our agents and officers have the ability to neutralize a threat at the time that they see it.
I'm sorry, you don't know the communication that was taking place or how long he had him in his sights because you haven't spoke to him, but you do know that there was no order to hold fire.
I can tell you the way that our personnel are trained. They are trained on the use of force scale, that when they see a threat, they are authorized to neutralize that threat. They don't have to ask for permission.
You excuse the roof being unmanned because of the slope. Do you stand by that assertion?
The roof was not covered with an individual on it because there was overwatch provided.
Apparently not. No, there was no overwatch provided. This is very evident. President Trump was shot. A man died. There was no oversight provided. I find this rather maddening, especially now knowing that you do have answers from the FBI, who you have been passing the buck to this entire hearing, not answering a congressional hearing, members of Congress, while you are under oath and under a subpoena. I find it maddening that the director, that our country has come centimeters away from oblivion under your watch. You have answers. You are refusing to give those to us, directing us to the FBI, and this entire thing is a waste of time. You are responsible for the loss of a life and the shooting that took place on President Trump. You do need to resign. This is bipartisan. You need to be fired. You do not need to hold this position. You are not the best for this job. I am over my time, but I cannot tolerate your watch any longer, and I'm going to continue to call daily for you to be removed from your position, ma'am.
Now, we do know tonight whistleblowers have come forward to Missouri Senator Josh Hawley with very serious allegations, including that the rally was classified as only a loose security event, and many people protecting Trump were not even Secret Service agents at all. We need answers to that and a lot of other questions. Senator Josh Hawley, he actually traveled to Butler, Pennsylvania. He met with local officials to see firsthand the building and the the sniper, the one they scaled, trying to assassinate President Trump. Senator Hawley joins us now. Senator, my understanding is it hardly was a pitch roof. I could look at it and tell you, as a guy that fell off a roof 3 stories, it's not a pitch roof. Number one. Number two, if they knew it was a threat and they didn't want their agents on it, I could live with that. Why weren't there sniper eyes on it? Why weren't there agents surrounding the perimeter? Why did they keep telling us it's outside the perimeter? 130 yards is not outside the perimeter. The perimeter would be defined as any distance that any harm can be brought to a primary, in this case, Donald Trump, that you're protecting. So, and why are they blaming local law enforcement? That's not their job.
Well, I can tell you, Sean, I saw it today ahead of the Senate committee hearings on this. I went to go see myself. I went to the grounds. I went to the site because, frankly, I don't trust the FBI and the Secret Service to give us the real story. I want to see it myself. And you are right. That roof, it's hardly pitched at all. It's at a slight slant. And I'll tell you this, Sean, I couldn't believe how close it is to where Trump was. I stood right where Trump stood, looked over at that building. I mean, it is 100, 150 yards max. It is a clear line of sight from where President Trump was to that building. And the whistleblowers, Sean, what they have told me is unbelievable. It's that they were not patrolling the perimeter with canines as they were supposed to do. They were not patrolling the crowd. They weren't adequately keeping the area around the stage safe. And of course, we know that they didn't have eyes on that roof and that building. It's unbelievable.
It really is. Tell us what these whistleblowers are telling you that is most alarming to you.
Well, one thing is that most of the detail assigned to Trump that day and to that rally were not Secret Service, that most of them were from other federal agencies, including Homeland Security. And, Sean, they weren't prepared. They didn't know what the procedures were. They did not have the site locked down. They were not adequately patrolling the perimeter. As you just said a moment ago, they were leaving huge gaps. Whistleblowers also tell us that they were allowing people to come into the grounds who weren't checked. They weren't monitoring who was getting up around the stage. I mean, it's unbelievable, Sean. And having been there today myself, I can tell you, it is so close. That building where the shooter fired from is so close to where Trump was. The idea that you could have all of this time elapse and nobody notices, no law enforcement notices he's on the roof. One other thing, Sean, whistleblowers tell me that law enforcement were actually on different channels, different radio communication channels. There were multiple different channels, and they weren't coordinated. Sean, it's a total disaster. Somebody needs to resign for this.
Well, the Secret Service director needs to be fired. But they knew there was a suspect. You know, the guy had a rangefinder, for crying out loud. Who carries around a rangefinder with them? How stupid is this director? Well, we didn't want to put the officers at risk, so we put them inside the building, but not outside the perimeter of the building to make sure nobody got on top of the roof of the building. And why? You're telling me that it was mostly not Secret Service? And why are they blaming, again, local police? That's not their job. It's the job of the Secret Service. They don't have enough resources. Well, maybe we could take some money back from Ukraine and apply it to the Secret Service and protect every elected official.
And I tell you what, Sean, what local authorities told me here today, I talked to local law enforcement, and what they told me is they are angry that they're getting unfairly blamed. What they told me is, well, listen, we did our job. We did what we were asked to do. The Secret Service wasn't prepared. They didn't give them clear instructions. Locals are saying, don't roll this over onto us. You should take some responsibility, Secret Service, and they should. And your point about Ukraine is right. We can spend how many billions on Ukraine, but we can't protect an American president? I mean, what's going on around here? We've got to get the facts, Sean. And I tell you what, I won't rest until we get them.
No, I appreciate all of that. By the way, where are your fellow Democrats? Their silence is deafening to me. Why aren't they more outraged over this?
I don't know. I mean, I just don't get it at all. But I tell you one thing. Today, Sean, when I went to the site, the FBI has got more security on that site now than they did the night that Trump was shot at. I mean, the FBI, totally late. And they're trying to control the information. Sean, they tried to kick me off of the site. They said, get out of here. You shouldn't be on the site. We don't want you here.
Get out of here?
They are trying to control the information. Absolutely. They brought local cops, Sean. Get this. I'm there on site. I had permission from the local security operator to be there, and the FBI came out and said, you have got to leave. We do not want you here. That's what they're trying to do.
From the FBI director. I want to hear from the Secret Service director. I want to hear from Mayorkas, Department of Homeland Security secretary. I want to hear from other.
That's when I realized that in the Matrix, when Morpheus holds up the battery and he says, we are the energy. And when I first saw the Matrix, I had no idea what he was talking about. I now have a much better idea what Morpheus was saying. What we energy for at this stage is open to interpretation. But what I do know, more than anything I've ever held dear, is that everything we've been taught is a lie.
Don't let them control it. They will indoctrinate you. Don't believe their lies. It's all bullshit. Everything you believe is a lie. Howdy. Is controlled by your belief. Open your mind. Don't let them control you. They will indoctrinate you. Don't believe their lies. It's all bullshit.
Sudo sibudo sinaranjana si samsara maya pariyajite si samsara svavanam jaja mohad nidram na janma mrityor traisat svarupi. Sudo sibudo sinaranjana si samsara maya pariyajite si samsara svavanam jaja mohad nidram na janma mrityor traisat svarupi. Sudo sibudo sinaranjana si samsara maya pariyajite si samsara svavanam jaja mohad nidram na janma mrityor traisat svarupi. Sudo sibudo sinaranjana si samsara maya pariyajite si samsara svavanam jaja mohad nidram na janma mrityor traisat svarupi. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. Sudo se budo se naranjana se samsara maya pariyajite se samsara svapanam traja moha nidram najanma mrityur trisatsvarupi. Sudo se budo se naranjana se samsara maya pariyajite se samsara svapanam traja moha nidram najanma mrityur trisatsvarupi. Sudo se budo se naranjana se samsara maya pariyajite se samsara svapanam traja moha nidram najanma mrityur trisatsvarupi. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. Sudo se budo se naranjana se samsara maya pariyajite se samsara svapanam traja moha nidram najanma mrityur trisatsvarupi. Sudo se budo se naranjana se samsara maya pariyajite se samsara svapanam traja moha nidram najanma mrityur trisatsvarupi. Sudo se budo se naranjana.
Happy to share. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, We're going to try to do something a little tricky this evening. You're going to see the continuing theme of, hey, here's where we're borrowing, here's where the borrowing's coming from. And then I'm going to hit on some of the things that what's the nice way? Yeah, drive me almost insane on the questions I get here, the things I get on this stupid thing. And I've come to this conclusion. We live in a world where the propaganda, the fake information, the distortion fields around us actually do not want America to succeed. And that's a pretty dark thing to say, but let's actually walk through my theory. And look, I'm going to make the point. On some of these presentations, I've been blessed. You go on YouTube, and I had one a couple months ago. I think there's like 1.3 million views. Go look at the comments section. I'll argue about half those comments are bots. They're fake. When you see things like, well, if you just didn't give any money to Israel, we could balance the budget. You start to realize that there's a world out there that takes advantage of our open society, that comes at us with things that are lies, and the poor person out there who's just trying to take care of their family, you know, on occasion grabs their phone, tries to read little bits of news, maybe reads a comment or two, and they don't realize the information coming at them is absolute crap. And then the other problem here, I'm going to show here, when I have my own president get behind a microphone, look at the American people, and say things that are absolutely not true, and then an idiot like myself tries to come up and say, I have a path, there's a path. If I can get my brothers and sisters on the left to work with us on the right, there's a path to save this country. But it's really hard when the State of the Union goes in that podium right there and says things that are absolutely not true. Does that mean they're also a deliverer of fake information? Because math is hard. Math is uncomfortable. Telling the truth is hard. Maybe this place has lied for so many decades that the public says, look, we're just going to believe whatever is comfortable. So let's actually walk through first a little bit of reality here. I like to start with this chart because it sort of lays out where we're at today. You see the red. 74% of the spending is in that red area. 74% of the spending in this place is on autopilot. We don't get to vote on it. Do you see the blue? That's what I get to vote on. That's defense and non-defense discretionary. I get to vote on that. Every dime of it is borrowed. Every dime a member of Congress votes on is borrowed money. And guess what? We're in so much trouble because interest now, if you actually do, I have net interest on this, which I think is unfair because there's this thing called net. That's the publicly borrowed. That's where the Treasury sells bonds. I think this week we're selling $111 billion, maybe it's 112 or 13 billion dollars in 3 different auctions this week, just to finance our insatiable spending. Because remember, and this is one of the things I find even at home is uncomfortable, 100% of the borrowing from today through the next 30 years, according to CBO, is interest, Medicare, and if a decade from now we backfill Social Security. It's demographics. And yet, how do you make policy? And there's ways to fix it with policy. When the leader of the free world looks into a camera and says things that are just insane when it comes to being on a calculator. So take a look one more time. Non-defense discretionary, defense, all that's borrowed, and a wedge. I should do a chart that shows you how much is borrowed money, because if we borrow 2.1, 2.3, I originally thought we might be at $2.5 trillion borrowing this year, and some of the tax receipts are a little bit better. Some of the spiking growth that we had in the first part of the fiscal year on healthcare costs have flattened ever so slightly. So we're probably going to end up around borrowing $2.3 trillion this year. What that means is even part of the mandatory spending, Medicare. Because remember, Medicare isn't all on the trust fund. The trust fund only covers 38, 40%. The rest comes out of the general fund. So once again, look at this chart and understand your government functionally is an insurance company with an army. And that's meant to be sarcastic, but it's meant to sink in. So let's actually walk through, I'm going to walk through a couple of these just to sort of lay out where we're actually at. CBO predicts by 2054, so 30 years from now, budget deficits are entirely driven by Social Security and Medicare shortfalls. But we're not allowed to say that, are we? Does anyone remember the State of the Union? You know, there was a handful of Democrats and Republicans who'd been quietly working for a year trying to put together a plan to save Social Security in the long run. And the president gets there and goes, well, promise me you won't talk about Social Security or Medicare. And people look terrified and go, okay, yes, good campaign issue, because they care more about winning the next election than protecting seniors. It's the great lie around here. You know, you talk about it saying, I want to find a way to modernize and save, and you'll get the crap kicked out of you. You also told the truth. But you got to look at the data, the charts. And remember, the SSA, the Social Security Administration's actuary numbers are actually substantially more optimistic than Social Security or than Congressional Budget Office. So we're going to use the more optimistic numbers. But when you start to realize when the outlays are in over the next 30 years, you're starting to hit 17% of the entire economy. And revenues don't come anywhere close to that. And there's your crisis. But we can just pretend because getting through the next election is more important. And look, you've all seen this chart over and over and over and over and over and over and over. That interest continues to grow, and we think actually the interest calculation, this is important, let's do this right now. The hierarchy right now today, Social Security will this year $1.48 trillion. Total gross interest, because you remember, we just like a couple days ago, I think we sent $36 billion to Social Security because we had borrowed the money, Treasury had borrowed the money from the trust fund. We pay it back interest. Total interest in the United States will approach $1.2 trillion this year. And then you have Medicare, and then you have defense. Defense is functionally sitting as number 4. How do you have a society that runs around thinking, well, if we just cut some defense? Well, I showed you the chart before. You can get rid of every dime of defense, every dime of non-defense discretionary. That's the Park Service, that's the FBI, that's the Foreign Service, that's us. You get rid of everything. You still have to borrow money. And you look at the charts over and over, and when we've had high marginal tax rates, we get about 18% of GDP in taxes. When we've had low marginal tax rates, we get about 18% of GDP. You have a long history, and I've done floor presentation after floor presentation that, you know, in this, when you go to lower the rates, you grew the economy, you got about the same percentage GDP. When you raised the tax rates, the economy shrunk a bit or slowed down, and you got the same percentage GDP. The idea is grow the economy as much as possible and then cut spending everywhere you can. And I have some charts, and I don't know if I should do them again, where actually maybe I'll just jump to them in a moment, where you lay out almost every tax hike that are the dreams of the left. Let's tax rich people for over $400,000. Let's do this tax and that tax. And I come here with the academic papers and showed you when you maximize all those tax rates and, you know, capital gains, income tax, estate tax, you just do it all. You get about 1.5% of GDP. Okay? For us on a cut side, it's brutal, but I can come up with almost $300 billion in non-defense discretionary. But that's 1% of GDP. So, hey, together we came up with 2.5%. You know, we're borrowing 6-7% of the entire economy, and we've used up everything. I mean, understand what's going on here. So just another chart that basically gives you a sense. Rising Social Security and Medicare shortfalls driven entirely or nearly the entire 2019 to 34 deficit hikes. That means in the 10-year window, almost all the growth of the debt and deficit during that time period. Interest, Medicare, and then at the end of the decade, Social Security Trust Fund's gone. Because right now, you'll get a Democrat saying, well, Social Security doesn't add anything to the deficit. They're absolutely correct. Until the trust fund's gone. And there's the part that enraged me the other night. So if any of you were able to try to watch the presidential debate the other night, my phone lit up at one point by a bunch of reporters who wanted to double check a number. The president basically said this, he was asked about Social Security. I begin to make the wealthy, I begin, and this is his actual quote, so it's disjointed, but this is what he said. I begin to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life. He's talking about Social Security, so 1%. Then he went on to say, well, that 1% will be enough to keep it solvent. Okay, so the left's definition of wealthy is over $400,000 income, right? The president just told the American people 1%. I'll fix Social Security by taxing them 1%. Okay, we got a math problem. And the problem here is the blue you see here, that's not 1%. I had to make it 2% because the 1% was so small we figured you couldn't even see it. So I doubled what the president said. This is the shortfall. Half of this is what the president told you it would work. So I'm enraged by all the fake crap that comes into my phone, my office, our phones, our publications, all the things that you see on Twitter, or X, or whatever we're supposed to call it today, that are just made up by bots, particularly in foreigners. What happens now when my own president does it? How do I show up here? How do I get my brothers and sisters here to actually make policy? And then idiots like me get here and try to walk through the math. Look, this is the MedPAC report. It's not that hard to read. When you have quotes in here that in 2022, 13% of all personal and corporate income taxes collected by the federal government were transferred to Social Security, or excuse me, the Medicare Trust Fund. By 2030, so that's how many years? What, 5 budget years? 4 budget years? 22% of all tax receipts from corporate and individual income tax, 22% will just go to Medicare. Functioning in a decade, you've gone from 13 to 22 of all tax receipts. It's demographics. Why isn't this what we talk about around this place, how we're going to save these programs? Oh, you can't do that because you're going to have a president who's going to knife you by saying crazy things. The Joint Economic Report we published a couple weeks ago. We tried to provide brutally honest math, brutal detail, with actual solutions. Will anyone actually read it? So back to, you don't need to see it. This one my staff was particularly fond of. It turns out that one of the new spoofings out there that are coming into young people's phones is celebrities with quotes that the celebrities have never said. Are you all ready for this election cycle where you have AI memes looking like a member of Congress, looking like a president, looking like a senator, looking like someone's celebrity, saying things that are completely fake? Now come here and try to do difficult policy where you're going to have to take on some bureaucracies, take on certain business models, adopt technology to crash the price of health care. Are you going to get hit by an army of bots, an army of fake videos, an army of fake postings saying, they can't do that because some group has figured out that winning the election or stopping us from saving the country from its debt spiral? I'm trying to explain, It's bad enough having to take on the bureaucracy. It's bad enough having to take on the calcified intellect of particularly some of my friends here who say, we could just fix everything by taxing people more. What happens when our voters have to face millions of absolutely fake information coming crashing at them? I can't wait to see the bots and the comments they put in the video below this posting. So take a look here. Not touching Social Security means large benefit cuts. When you start to actually take a look, and I think we did this before, and remember, the number goes up and down depending on employment, but we were working on one the other day from last year's CBO number that basically showed the average couple would take about a $17,400 cut in their Social Security a decade from now when the trust fund's gone. This is immoral. Shouldn't it be actually a place where we actually work on these things? And then you actually start to actually look at the lies, the misinformation that our brothers and sisters on the left keep saying. Oh, you know, when we did tax reform, it was a gift to the rich. Okay, you got a math problem. The higher income, the top 20% today pay 69% of all income taxes. It is more progressive today than the tax code has ever been. The wealthy pay a higher percentage of federal income taxes today than ever before. And the lower quartiles today pay the lowest federal income tax rates in U.S. history. Well, since income taxes, 16th Amendment. How often do you hear this? But that doesn't fit the narrative. And then you have the jerks actually say things like this. Well, you guys had, you know, 1.7 trillion spending. Yes, we got $900 billion more revenue than expected, but that was horrible. Hey, we're going to spend about $2 trillion in grants and gifts and those things to big business because if they do clean energy stuff. It's like they don't look themselves in the mirror. And once again, I've done entire presentations here going through every left-wing tax idea, trying to add it up, and even when you don't do economic effects, if you do economic effects, these numbers, and then try to say, hey, you guys are only getting about 1.5 points or so of GDP out of these numbers. You're not getting anywhere close. You've got to do it through policy. And then the fragility that no one was prepared, well, some of us were prepared for, is interest rates. How many of you think interest rates are going back down? Particularly on the long end of the curve. Yeah, remember, what the Federal Reserve does is on the short end of the curve, meaning shorter term bonds. When you start to look at 10-year debt and up, some of the best bond traders and economists right now are saying, it's not going down. You might get a little bit of tick. United States is now number 14 on the credit stack, meaning Greece today can sell a 10-year bond cheaper than we can. And you read the notes on the S&Ps and the Moody's, it's not only, and we have one of the healthiest economies in the industrialized world. But one of the things that's going on is they don't trust us. Will our governance be disciplined enough to actually take on the spending and the debt? And the fact of the matter is, we're paying a premium now. United States now pays a premium on our debt. Remember, this week I told you, I think we're borrowing there's 3 auctions this week, about $111 billion. And we're going to pay a premium on that debt because sometimes this place doesn't look like we're serious about taking the debt on and managing our fiscal affairs. And it's serious when you keep looking at the issuance. First off, we're having great difficulty selling long-term bonds. Do you remember a few months ago we had sort of a bond tantrum? Why do you think Treasury moved things down to sell short-term, short-term, short-term? Because a lot of investors out there don't even trust this government enough to say, I'm going to buy a 30-year U.S. savings bond and I'm going to be safe. And once again, even a 100% tax rate on small businesses and upper income families could not come close to balancing the long-term budget in this country.
All right, this is Shay Bernhardt, manager at the BrooklynStation.com, KingandQueenRadio.com, and this is episode 10 of Preceding Clarity, the finish of the lost story book of Enki. It's translated by Zachariah Sitchin. And then we're going to go into some of the ulama teachings, which is a branch of Islamics. And that's very interesting because that kind of fills out the whole picture, and it eventually will tie it nice and neatly in a bow with what's going on today. And we'll also cover some of the prophecies of the Anunnaki. So let's get started. This time we're going to have a little something to keep your mind occupied while I'm reading. Of course, I could use AI just to do this, but doing it in person kind of adds that personal touch to it. So, some of the video is AI created to make my job a little easier. So, it gives you something for those that are watching to look at while I'm reading the rest of this book. So, without further ado, so, if you remember correctly, which I'm sure you do, we were at the point where Inanna got Enki drunk and used her feminine wiles to convince him to give her the MEs, which basically listed all the key elements of, basically they were the information on all the key elements of civilization. So she conned him out of him, and he sent Izamid, his servant, to chase Inanna down and get him back. We're going to start right there, which is basically somewhere around where I left off. To chase Inanna in Enki's skyship, Izamid, he instructed. All the MEs you must retrieve to him, he said. At the approach to Unukai, Izamid, Inanna's boat of heaven intercepted. To return to Eridu and the wrath of Enki face he made her. But when Inanna back to Eridu was brought, the MEs with her no more were. To her chambermaid Ninshabar she gave them. To the house of Anu in Unukai, Ninshabar took them. In the name of my power, in the name of my father Anu, I command you the MEs to return. So did Enki angrily to Inanna say, in his abode, captive he held her. When of this Enlil heard, to Eridu to face his brother who came. By right the MEs have I attained, Enki himself in my hand placed them. So did Inanna to Enlil her father say. The truth of that Enki meekly admitted. When the time term of Kishi shall be completed, to Unukai kingship shall pass, so did Enlil declare. When Marduk all this did hear, greatly he was enraged, his anger no bounds knew. Enough has my humiliation been, to his father Enki Marduk shouted. A sacred city of his own in Eden from Enlil he forthwith demanded. When Enlil to Marduk appeals paid no heed, Marduk fate in his own hands he grasped. To a place that for Anu's arrival before Unukai was selected was considered, Nabu, the Igigi, and their offspring from their dispersal lands summoned. For Marduk therein a sacred city, a place for skyships to establish. When his followers at the place assembled, stones to build with they found not. Marduk how to make bricks and burn them by fire to serve as stone to them he showed. Therewith a tower whose head the heavens can reach they were building. To thwart the plan, Enlil to the place hurried. To placate Marduk with soothing words he tried. To stop Marduk and Nabu in their endeavor, Enlil did not succeed. In Nibrukai, Enlil his sons and grandchildren assembled. What to do they all considered. Marduk, an unpermitted gateway to heaven is building. To earthlings it he is entrusted. So did Enlil to his sons and grandchildren say. If this we allow to happen, no other matter of mankind shall be unreached. This evil plan must be stopped, Night Erda said. All with that agreed. It was night time when from Nibrugai the Enlilite Anunnaki came. From their sky ships, havoc upon the rising tower, fire and brimstones they rained. To the tower and the whole encampment a complete end they made. To scatter abroad the leader and his followers, Enlil thereupon decided. So yeah, this is kind of where the division of races, the confusion of tongues, and the scattering of humanity really originates, and you can trace this as the seed to basically the disinformation campaign that's messing up us so far up, especially spiritually right now, and this chain of slavery of which Mr. Tellinger spoke. I use a lot of other people's lectures and information for the simple fact that I do want to allow you to hear people that are there on the ground discovering this stuff, so that you can make your own decision based on more accurate information than you're going to actually be presented, say, in the official story. That's kind of there's a lot more of information available, but there's also an awful lot of disinformation. So being able to weed through that, it happens to be one of my skills, and thus you benefit from me weeding through all that bullshit. Now, one thing to keep in mind is these histories may not necessarily be 100% accurate, because these were written after the decision to divide the races, diminish us, and confuse our tongue came. Now, later on, after this, once we get to the end of this book, we're going to move on to another view, which is the ulema of the Islamic sect that actually still has a book called the Ramashad, which is a grimoire of the Anunnaki esoteric system. So that gets that gets pretty intense there too, but we'll get into that after we get done with this. Alrighty then, so where were we? To scatter abroad the leader and his followers, Enlil thereupon decided. Henceforth their counsels to confuse, their unity to shatter, Enlil decreed. Silent weapons for quiet wars, anyone? Until now all the earthlings one language had, in a single tongue they speak. Henceforth their language I shall confound, that they each other's speech will not understand. In the 310th year since the count of Earth years began did all this happen. That would, I believe, I think they've traced that timekeeping actually to the Hebrew calendar, where the Hebrew calendar actually begins. But I'll have to check on that. Like I say, I lose track because I'm usually reading a number of different histories, grimoires, and other informational books at a time, and it gets kind of hard to keep all the minor details straight. And in this instance, the minor details really are far less important than the ability to detect the overall design, which is, one of the things that I find interesting in the whole history thing is they baffle you so much with the individual trees that you don't really get an image of the grand picture, the grand scheme of things, and that's what actually matters. Especially in stuff like this, because intuition plays a larger part than logic at this point. In each region and every land, the people a different tongue he made speak, a different form of writing thereafter to each was given, that one the other will not comprehend. 23 kings did in Kishi reign, for 408 years was it the scepter city. It was also in Kishi that a beloved king Etana for a heavenly journey was taken. At the allotted time, let kingship to Unagai be transferred, so did Enlil decree. To its soil the heavenly bright object from Kishi was transferred. When the decision to the people was announced, to Anana an exaltation hymn they sang. Lady of the Emis, queen, brightly resplendent, righteous in radiance clothed, of heaven and earth beloved. By the love of Anu consecrated, great adorations wearing. 7 times the Emi she obtained, in her hand she them is holding. For the tiara of kingship they are appropriate, for high priesthood suitable. Lady of the great knees, of them she is the guardian. In the 409th year after the count of earth years began, kingship of the first region to Enki was transferred. Its first king was the high priest of the Zina temple abode, a son of Utu he was. As for Marduk, to the land of the two narrows he went, to be master of the second region, once established, he expected. Now this is the account of how the second and third regions were established, and how Ningishida, which, by the way, is Thoth, was exiled, and Unug-Kai Arata threatened. And Thoth also is Quetzalcoatl. When Marduk, after a long absence to the land of the two narrows, returned, Ningishida as its master he there found. Its lofty lord Ningishida was. With the aid of offspring of Anunnaki who earthlings espoused, did Ningishida the lands oversee. What Marduk had once planned and instructed by Ningishida was overturned. What is it that happened, Marduk of Ningishida to know demanded. Of the destruction of hidden things, Marduk Ningishida accused, of making Horon to a desert place depart, a place that has no water, a boundless place where sexual pleasures are not enjoyed. The two brothers in uproar made, upon quarreling bitterly they embarked. Pay heed, I am here in my proper place, Marduk to Ningishida said.
Today I've got an epic tale straight from ancient Sumerian lore. Imagine this, a celestial family feud between two Anunnaki brothers, Thoth and Marduk. Now Thoth, known as the god of wisdom, writing and magic, is often associated with the moon. Picture him as the sage, calm and collected, always thinking 3 steps ahead. On the other hand, we have Marduk, god of thunderstorms, war and justice. A powerful figure, Marduk is fiery, commanding, and definitely not one to back down from a challenge. So, what could spark a clash between these two mighty brothers? It starts with their differing visions for the world. Thoth, advocating for knowledge and enlightenment, believes that wisdom should guide the destiny of humanity. He envisions a world where understanding and intellect reign supreme. Marduk, however, sees things differently. He believes in strength and order, arguing that power and authority are essential to maintain balance and justice. His idea is that without a firm hand, chaos would reign and civilization would crumble. Imagine the intensity of their debates. Thoth calmly presenting his case, his eyes gleaming with the light of the moon. Marduk, his voice booming like thunder, passionately defending his stance. Their arguments would shake the very heavens, but here's where it gets even more intriguing. The ancient texts hint at battles not just of words, but of cosmic proportions. Think of celestial beings summoning the elements, each clash resonating through the cosmos. Thunderstorms versus moonlight, war versus wisdom. And yet, despite their differences, there's a certain respect between them. They both understand the significance of their roles and the balance they bring to the universe. It's this dynamic, this powerful sibling rivalry that shapes the myths we still marvel at today. So next time you gaze up at the moon or hear the rumble of a distant storm, remember Thoth and Marduk. Their celestial clash is more than just a story. It's a reminder of the eternal struggle between wisdom and power, intellect and authority. If you enjoyed this mythological showdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the ancient world. Until next time, keep exploring the myths that shape our past.
Bitterly they embarked. Pay heed, I am here in my proper place, Marduk to Ningishida said. You have been my place taker. From now on, only a deputy of mine you can be. But if to rebellion you are inclined, to another land go away you must. For 350 years did the brothers in the land of the two narrows quarrel. For 350 years was the land in chaos. Between the brothers it was split. Then Enki, their father, to Ningishida said, for the sake of peace, to other lands depart. To go to a land beyond the oceans, Ningishida chose. With a band of followers, thereto he went. Which they have evidence, I mean, Thoth was in Egypt, and when he left Egypt, he brought some Egyptians with him, which would explain why they found evidence of Egypt having been over in South America. and evidence of Egyptian culture there. Especially, they had somebody find a cave in the Grand Canyon that was lost after that was full of Egyptian artifacts. 650 Earth years was at the time to count. But in the new domain where Ningishida, the winged serpent, was called, a new count of its own began. The Aztec calendar, which was the Mayan calendar, which was the, I can't remember the name of them before that. I'll have to get back to that one. In the land of the two Narrows, the second region under Marduk's lordship was established. In the annals of the first region, Magan, the land of the Cascading River, it was called. But by the second region's people, when languages were confounded, Hemta, the dark brown land, it was henceforth called. Naturu, guardian watchers, the Anunnaki, were there in the new language called. Natero, guardian watchers. Marduk as Ra, the bright one, was worshipped. Enki as Ptah, the developer, was venerated. Ningishida as Tahuti, the divine measurer, was recalled. To erase his memory, Ra on the stone lion, his image with that of his son Asar replaced. To count by tens, not by 60, Ra the people made. So that's when basically the sun Ra became the Egyptian deity, right? The primary one. Although it's a misconception that the Egyptians believed in multiple deities. They were just practical enough to assume that each deity was an aspect of the one deity, alright? Just to keep that straight. The year he also by tens divided. The watching of the moon by the watching of the sun he replaced. Whereas under the lordship of Tahuti, the golden city of the north and the city of the south were reestablished, Marduk, Ra, the two lands of the north and of the south, into one crowned city united. A king, an offspring of Neteru, an earthling he there appointed. Mina was his name. Where the two lands meet and the great rivers divides, a scepter city Ra established. Splendor to surpass Kishi in the first region he gave it. Mina Nefar, Mina's beauty, it was called. To honor his elders, Ra, a holy city built. To honor Nibiru's king Anu, he named it. Therein on a platform, a temple abode for his father Enki Ta he created. Its head within a high tower like a sharp rocket skyward rose. In its shrine, Ra, the upper part of his celestial bard deposited. Ben-Ben it was called, which a Ben-Ben, if you've seen it, looks just like an airplane, you know, kind of right there. Alright, yeah, oops, right spot. Oh, right there. Yeah, there it is. Alright. It was the one in which, from the planet of countless years he had traveled. On the day of the new year, the king as high priest, the ceremonies performed. On that day only, alone, the innermost star room he entered, before the Ben-Ben offerings he would put. To benefit the second region, Ta, to Ra, all manner of mees gave. What do I know that you do not know? The father his son asked. Then all the manner of knowledge, except that of the dead reviving, to Ra he gave. As a great one of the 12 celestials, Ta to Ra, the constellation sign of the ram, allotted. The water flow of Happy, the land's great river, Ta for Ra and his people regulated. Abundance in the fertile soils quickly came, man and cattle proliferated. By the success of the second reign, the leaders were encouraged. The third region to establish, they proceeded. To make it a domain of Inanna, as she was promised, they decreed. As befits the mistress of a region, a celestial constellation to her was assigned. Beforehand, with her brother Utu, the station of the twins she shared. Henceforth, as a gift from Ninharsig, her constellation of the maiden to Inanna was allotted. In the 860th year, according to the earth count year, it was Inanna so honored. Far away in the eastern lands, beyond 7 mountain ranges, was a third region, Zamush, land of 60 precious stones, was its highland realm called. Arata, the wooded realm, was in the valley of a meandering great river located. In the great plain did the people cultivate crops of grains and horned cattle herd. There too, 2 cities with mud bricks they built, with granaries they were filled. As by a Lenless decree required, the Lord Enki, Lord of Wisdom, for the third region a changed tongue devised, a new kind of writing, signs he for it fashioned. a tongue of man heretofore unknown, for Arata, Enki, and his wisdom created. But the means of civilized kingdoms for the third region Enki did not give. Let Inanna what for Unag-Kai had obtained with the new region share, so did Enki declare. In Arata, Inanna a shepherd chief appointed, akin to her beloved Dumuzi he was. In her skyship from Unag-Kai to Arata, Inanna journeyed. Over mountains and valleys she flew. The precious stones of Zamash she cherished, pure lapis lazuli with her to Unag-Kai she carried. At that time the king in Unag-Kai was Enmerkar, the second one to reign therein he was. It was he who the boundaries of Unag-Kai expanded, by his glories was Inanna exalted. It was he who the wealth of Arata coveted, to be over Arata supreme he schemed. To Arata Enmerkar an emissary dispatched as a tribute Arata's riches to demand. Over 7 mountain ranges, through parched lands and then soaked by rains, the emissary to Arata went. To the king of Arata the demand words of Enmerkar, word for word he repeated. His language the king of Arata to understand was unable. Like the bray of a donkey its sound was. A wooden scepter, inscribed with the message the king of Arata to the emissary gave. To share Unag-Kai's meas with Arata the king's message requested. As a royal gift to Unag-Kai, grains on donkeys were loaded. With the emissary to Unag-Kai they went. When Enmerkar the inscribed scepter received its message in Unag-Kai, no one could understand. He brought it forth from light to shade, he brought it forth from shade to light. What kind of wood is this, he asked. Then the planet in the garden he ordered. After 5 years, after 10 years had passed, from the scepter a tree grew, a tree of shade it was. And it makes me wonder, because there was a split up between the Sons of Priory and the Knights Templar, which eventually led to the abolishment of the Knights Templar, actually, if I remember correctly. But I know it was basically called the Battle of the Oak, and it was between French and English, if I remember correctly. And it was all about this oak tree, because apparently the English were getting shade, it was hot, the French got pissed off. That's the official story. But there was something weird about that tree, because there was a lot that stemmed from that. You know, that kind of ended that kind of cut the Templars off from their protection, and it was shortly after that they were no more. So I always wonder if it's supposed to be that tree there, because, you know, that would make sense. Then the cutting down of the elm, or was it oak? I think it was elm. But the cutting down of this tree, whatever the importance of it, you know, seems to, I think it actually goes all the way back to here, because Arata was in the Ukraine, and France was part of that, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? It was a long time ago. And, I mean, with all these different names and all the different histories and the different places, and yada, yada, unless you got like basically a map that cross-references all that, it's really impossible to keep all the different names straight. So if I'm inaccurate in any way, please, that's just my feeling. I could actually put together a map, but I probably will at the end of this, just so as well as a genealogy, so everybody has a clear idea of exactly what the hell is going on. But I mean, again, you know, the details are far less important. This stuff already happened. And for the most part, it's ancient history, other than how it affects us today. I mean, it is a fascinating story, and it does affect us in this present day. But, you know, the details of exactly who lived where at that point in time, or what city was located where, is far less important than the actual broad picture of the events that took place. What shall I do? What shall I do in frustration? His grandfather Utu asked. With heavenly Nisaba, the mistress of scribes in writing, Utu interceded. On a clay tablet his message to inscribe Nisaba Enmerkar taught. In the tongue of Arata it was. By the hand of his son Banda was the message delivered. Submission or war, it said. By Inanna, Arata was not abandoned. To Unag-Kai, Arata will not submit, the king of Arata said. If warfare Unag-Kai desires, let one warrior and one warrior meet in combat. Better yet, let us peacefully treasures exchange. Let Unug Kai its means for Arada's riches give. On the way back, carrying the peace message, Banda fell sick, his spirit left him. His commerce raised his neck without the breath of life it was. On Mount Hurum, on the way from Arada to his death, was abandoned. The riches of Arada Unug Kai did not receive, the means of Unug Kai Arada did not obtain. In the third region, she still mourned, her love's desire unquenched remained. When she flew about in the sun rays of Demosi's image, she saw shimmering and beckoning. In the night time, in dream visions, he appeared. I will return, he was saying. The glories of his domain in the land of two narrows to her he was promising. In the sacred precinct of Unug Kai, a house for nighttime pleasure she established. To this Giganu young heroes on the night of their weddings with sweet words she lured. Long life, a blissful future to them she promised, that her lover Demosi was she imagined. Each one in the morning in her bed was found dead. It was at that time that the hero Banda, left for dead, alive to Unug Kai returned. By the grace of Utu, whose seed he was, did Banda from the dead return. A miracle, excited and honest shouted. My beloved Demosi to me come back. In her abode, Banda was bathed. With a sash, a fringed cloak on him was fastened. Demosi, my beloved, she called him. To her bed with flowers bedecked she lured him. When in the morning Banda was alive, with joy and honest shouted. The power of not dying in my hands was placed. Immortality by me is granted. Then to call herself a goddess in undecided. The power of immortality it implied. Alright, so, yeah, and this kind of actually ties into the discovery of America by Columbus and all that, because, I mean, what they were really looking for is the fountain of youth, and there was rumors of that, yada, 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 so this seems to be where, like, the immortality thing kind of gained an issue, the life after death, the bringing back from the dead, which seems to have become, after this point, it started getting to be a big issue, which, you know, well, we'll get into more of that later on when we start talking about some of the esoteric systems. Anyway, Nanara Ningal and on his parents, by her proclamation, were not pleased, and Lil and Ninurta, by Inanna's words, were disconcerted. Utu, her brother, was bemused. The dead to revive is not possible. Enki and Ninharseg to each other said. In the lands of Kai Engi, the people their good fortune praise. The gods are among us. Death they can abolish. So to each other the people did say. On the throne of Unug Kai, Banda his father Enmerkar succeeded. Lugal, great man, his title was. The goddess Ninsun of Enlil's seed took him to be her spouse. The hero Gilgamesh, their son, on the throne of Unug Kai, Lugal Banda followed. As the years passed and Gilgamesh older grew, of life and death to his mother Ninsun he spoke. About the death of his forebears, though of Anunnaki descended, he wondered, do gods die, his mother he asked? Shall I too, though 2/3 divine, as a mortal over the wall climb? So to her said. Which kind of reminds me of the story of Buddhist youth, where he was protected from seeing things like death and suffering in order that they would not spoil his divinity, right? So that he would never ask that question, actually. So to her he said, as long as on earth you abide, the death of an earthling will you overwhelm, Ninsun to her son said. But if to Nibiru you will be taken, long life thereon you will attain. To take Gilgamesh aloft to Nibiru journey, Ninsun to Utu the commander appealed. Endlessly Ninsun to Utu appealed, day after day with him she pleaded, let Gilgamesh to the landing place go. Utu, in the end, agreed. To guide and protect him, Ninharsag, a double of Gilgamesh fashioned, and Kaidu, as by Enki created, was he called. Of a womb he was not born, blood in his veins was not, a golem, pardon me. With the comrade Enkidu, Gilgamesh to the landing place journeyed. Utu with oracles his progress oversaw. At the entrance to the cedar forest, its fire-belching monster their way blocked. With trickery the monster confused. To pieces they broke. When the secret entrance to the tunnels of the Anunnaki they found, by the bull of heaven, a creature of Enlil with deadly snorts, were they challenged. To the gates of Enki the monster them chased. At the city's ramparts by Enkidu it was smitten. When Enlil this heard, with agony he cried. In the heavens of Anu was his wailing heard. For in his heart Enlil well knew, bad indeed was the omen. For having the bull of heaven slain, to perish in waters, Enkidu was punished. Gilgamesh, having by Ninsun and Utu been instructed of the slaying, was absolved. Still the long life of Nibiru seeking, Gilgamesh to proceed to the place of chariots by Utu was permitted. After many adventures, the land of Tilman, the fourth region, he reached. Through its subterranean tunnels he proceeded. In a garden of precious stones, Zayasudra he met. The events of the deluge Zayasudra to Gilgamesh related. The secret of long living to Gilgamesh he revealed. A plant in the garden's well was growing. Zayasudra and his spouse from getting old it prevented. Unique of all the plants on earth it was, by it a man of full vigor can retain. Alright, so yeah, that's what they were looking for when they went to America. Man at old age is young again. This is the plant's name, Zayasudra to Gilgamesh said. A gift of Enki with Enlil's blessing on the Mount of Salvation to us was granted. When Zayasudra and his spouse were asleep, Gilgamesh to his feet stones tied. Into the well he dived. The plant of being young again he grasped and uprooted. With the plant in his satchel, through the tunnels he hurried. To Enki he made his way. When he tired and was asleep, a snake by the plant's fragrance was attracted. The plant did the snake snatch from the sleeping Gilgamesh. With the plant the snake vanished. In the morning his loss discovering, Gilgamesh sat and wept. To Enki empty-handed he returned, as a mortal therein he died. 7 more kings in Enki after Gilgamesh reigned. Then its kingship to an end came. Precisely when the account of 1,000 earth years was completed it was. To Aram, the city of Nanara and Ningal, was kingship of the first region transferred. To all these matters that in the other regions were occurring, Marduk much heed gave. By Inanna's dreams and visions to Dumuzi's domain alluding, Ra was disturbed. To counteract Inanna's schemes of expansions he was determined. In the matters of resurrection and immortality he found much to ponder. The thought of divine godship to him greatly appealed. To be a great god himself he announced. By what to Gilgamesh in good measure an earthling was permitted, Ra was angered. But a clever way wherewith the loyalty of kings and people to retain, he deemed it. If demigods the gateway to immortality are shown, let this to the kings of my region apply. So did Marduk in the second region by the name Ra known to himself these words say. Let the kings of my region of Neteru offspring be to Nibiru in an afterlife journey. So did Ra in his realm decree. So there comes the afterlife journey that's written in the hieroglyphs of Egypt, right? The kings how to build tombs facing eastward he taught. To the priest scribes a long book he dictated. The afterlife journey in detail in it was described. How to reach the Duat, the place of celestial boats, in the book was told. How to there by a stairway to heaven to the imperishable planet journey. Of the plant of life partake, the waters of youth to satiation drink. Of the coming of the gods to earth by Ra were the priests taught. Gold is the splendor of life to them, he said. The flesh of the gods it is, to the kings Ra said. To make expeditions to the Absu and the lower domain, gold to obtain, the kings he instructed. When by the force of weapon the kings of Ra lands not theirs conquer, his brothers' realms he invaded, their ire he caused to arise and grow. What is Marduk up to, the brothers each other asked, that over us he would trample? To their father Enki they appealed, to Ta, his father Ra, did not listen. To capture all adjoining lands, the kings of Megan and Meluhra directed. To be the master of the 4 regions was his heart's plan. The earth is mine to rule, so adamantly to his father he did say. Now this is the account of how Marduk Supreme himself declared and Babylon built, and how Inanna, warrior kings commanding, blood made flow and sacrileges allow. After kingship to Urim from Unag-Kai was transferred, Nanara and Ningil on the people smiled. As his rank of 30 befitting, as the god of the moon, Nanar was worshipped. As the count of the moon months in a year, 12 festivals each year he declared. To each of the 12 great Anunnaki, a month and its festival was dedicated. Throughout the first region to the Anunnaki gods, great and lesser ones, shrines and sanctuaries were built. The people to their gods could directly pray. In the first region, civilization from Kai Enki to other neighboring lands spread. The cities of man, local rulers as righteous shepherds was designated. Artisans and farmers, shepherds and weavers, their products far and wide exchanged. Laws of justice were decreed, contracts of trade, of espousal and divorce were honored. In the schools the young ones studied, scribes, hymns and proverbs and wisdom recorded. Abundance and happiness was in the lands. Quarrels and encroachments there also were, however. All the while, Inanna in her skyship from land around land roamed. Near the upper sea with Utu she frolicked. To the domain of her uncle Ishkur she went. Dudu, beloved, she called him. To the people who in the upper plain of the 2 rivers dwelt, Inanna took a liking. The sound of their tongues she found pleasant. To speak their tongues she learned. By the name of the planet Lahamu, in their tongue Ishtar they called her. Uruk, her city Unag-Kai they called. Dudu as Adad in their language they pronounced. Sin, lord of oracles, her father Nanar they named. Urim city by them was called. Shamash, bright sun in their tongue. Utu they called, him too they worshipped. Enlil by them father Enlil was called. Nippur by them was Nibru-Kai. Kai Engi, land of the lofty watchers, Shumer in their language was named. In Shumer, the first region, kingship between the cities was rotated. In the second region, diversity by Ra was not permitted, alone to reign he wished. The eldest of heaven, firstborn who was on earth, thus by the priests to be known he wanted. The foremost from the earliest times, so he decreed in the hymns to be called. Lord of eternity, who everlastingness is made, over all the gods presiding, the one who is without equal, the great solitary and sole one, so did Marduk as Ra, above all the other gods, himself in place. Their powers and attributes to himself he by himself assigned. As Enlil I am for lordship and decrees, as Ninurta for the hoe and combat, as Adad for lightning and thunder, as Nanar for illuminating the night. As Utu I am Shamash, as Nergal over the lower world I reign, as Gibel the golden depths I know, whence copper and silver come I have found. As Ningashida numbers in their count I command, the heavens my glory bespeak. By these proclamations, the Anunnaki leaders were greatly alarmed. To their father Enki, the brothers of Marduk spoke. Nergal to Ninurta their concerns conveyed. What has you overpowered? Enki to his son Marduk said. Unheard of are your pretensions. The heavens my supremacy bespeak, Marduk to his father Enki answered. The bull of heaven, Enlil's constellation sign, by his own offspring was slain. In the heavens, the age of the ram, my age is coming. Unmistakable the omens are. In his abode in Eridu, the circle of the 12 constellations Enki examined. On the first day of spring, the beginning of a year, sunrise was carefully observed. In the constellation stars of the bull was the sun that day rising. In Nibru-Kai and Urim Enlil and Nanar the observations made. In the lower world, where the instrument station had been, Nergal the results attested. Still remote was the time of the ram, the age of the bull of Enlil it still was. In his domains, Marduk in his assertions did not relent. By Nemau he was assisted. To domains not his emissaries he sent, to the people that his time has come to announce. To Nigashida, the Anunnaki leaders appealed, how to the people the skies to observe, to teach. In his wisdom, stone structures Nigashida devised, Ninurta and Ishtar to erect them helped. In the settled lands, near and far, the people how the skies to observe they taught. That the sun in the constellation of the bull was still rising to the people they showed. With sorrow did Enki these ongoings watch, how fate the rightful order twisted he pondered. After the Anunnaki as gods themselves declare, on mankind's support they instead are dependent. In the first region, to unify the lands under one leader, the Anunnaki decided a warrior king they desired. To Inanna of Marduk the adversary, the task of the right man to find they entrusted. A strong man whom on her journey she had met and loved, Inanna to Enlil indicated. Arbaka of 4 garrisons the commander was his father, a high priestess his mother was. Scepter and crown Enlil gave him. Sharukin, righteous regent, Enlil him appointed. As a Nibiru once was done, a new crown city, the lands to unify, was established. Agade, the unified city they named it. Not far from Kishi it was located. By Enlil was Sharukan empowered. Inanna with her weapons of brilliance his warriors accompanied. All the lands from the lower sea to the upper sea to his throne obedience gave. At the borders of the 4th region to protect it his troops were stationed. With the cautious eye, Ra on Inanna and Sharukin constantly gazed. Then as a falcon on his prey he pounced. From the place where Marduk the tower to heaven reaching to build had attempted, sacred soil from there to Agade did Sharukin move, therein the heavenly bright object to implant. Enraged did Marduk to the first region rush, with Nabu and followers to the tower's place they came. Of the sacred soil I alone the possessor am, by me shall the gateway of the gods be established. So did Marduk vehemently announce. Inanna's fury no boundary knew, with her weapons on Marduk's followers, death she inflicted. The blood of people as never before on earth like rivers flowed. To his brother Marduk, Nergal to Babel he came, for the sake of the people Babel to leave him he persuaded. Let us peacefully wait for the true signs of heavens, Nergal to his brother said. To depart Marduk agreed, from land to land the skies to watch he traveled. Amun, the unseen one in the 2nd region, was Ra, henceforth called Amun-Ra, right? For a while as was Inanna appeased. 2 sons of Sharukin his peaceful successors were. Then on the throne of Agade, Sharukin's grandson ascended, Naram-Sin, by sin but loved he was called. In the 1st region, Enlil and Ninurta absent were, to the lands beyond the oceans they went. In the 2nd region, Ra was away as Marduk in other lands he traveled. Her chance in her hands to seize all power as Inanna envisioned, Naram-Sin to seize all lands she commanded. To march against Naram-Sin she instructed. The sacrilegion of an earthling's army through the 4th region passing, Naram-Sin committed. Magan he invaded, the sealed Eker house, which like a mountain is, to enter he attempted. By the sacrileges and transgressions Enlil was infuriated. Upon Naram-Sin and Agade a curse and put. By a bite of a scorpion did Naram-Sin die. By the command of Enlil was Agade wiped out. At the count of 1,500 Earth years did this happen. Now this is the account of the prophecy by Galzu to Enlil in a vision given. About Marduk's supremacy it was, how a calamity to survive a man to choose. After Marduk, Amun became kingship in the 2nd region disintegrated, disorder and confusion reigned. After Agade was wiped out in the 1st region there was disorder, confusion reigned. In the 1st region kingship was in disarray, from cities of gods to cities of man it moved about. Unadkai, Lagash, Urim and Kish, Ison and to faraway places kingship was shifting. Then Enlil with Anu consulting, kingship in the hands of Ninar deposited. To Urim in whose soil the divine heavenly bright object remained implanted, kingship for the 3rd time was granted. In Urim, a righteous shepherd of men, Ninar as king appointed. Namu was his name. Equity in the lands of Namu established, to violence and strife an end he made. In all the lands prosperity was abundant. It was at that time that in the nighttime Enlil a dream vision had. The image of a man to him appeared, bright and shining like the heavens he was. As he approached and by Enlil's bed stood, Enlil the white-haired Galzu recognized. In his left hand a tablet of lapis lazuli he was holding. The starry heavens on it were designed. By the 12 constellation signs were the heavens divided. To them with his left hand Galzu pointed. From the bull to the ram Galzu his pointing shifted. 3 times the pointing he repeated. Then in the dream vision Galzu spoke up until Enlil thus said, "The righteous time of benevolence and peace by evil doing and bloodshed will be followed. In 3 celestial portions the ram of Marduk the bull of Enlil will replace. One who himself is supreme God has declared supremacy on earth will seize. A calamity as has never before occurred by fate decreed will happen. As at the time of the deluge, a righteous and worthy man must be chosen. By him and his seed will civilized mankind, as by the Creator of all intended, be preserved." So did Galzu, the divine emissary, to Enlil in the dream vision say. When Enlil from the nighttime dream vision awakened, there was no tablet beside his bed. Was it an oracle of heaven, or did it in all my heart imagine? Enlil to himself wondered. To none of his sons, none are among them, nor to Enlil did he of the dream vision tell. Among the priests in Nibrukai temple, Enlil of celestial savants inquired. Tirhu, an oracle priest, to him the high priest indicated. Of Ibru of Arbakad, the grandson, he was descended. 6th generation of Nibrukai priests he was. With the royal daughter of Urim's kings they were intermarried. Get yourself to Nanar's temple in Urim, the heavens for celestial time observe. 72 earth years is the count of a celestial portion. The passage of 3 thereof carefully record. So did Enlil to Tirhu the priest say. The prophesied time he made him count. While Enlil the dream vision and its portents pondered, Marduk from land to land went. Of his supremacy the people he was telling, to followers gain was his purpose. In the lands of the upper sea and the lands on Kyangi bordering, Nabu, Marduk's son, was the people inciting. To seize the 4th region was his plan. Between the dwellers of the west and the dwellers of the east, clashes were occurring. Kings' hosts of warriors formed, caravans ceased going, the walls of cities were raised. What Galzu had foretold indeed is happening, Enlil to himself said. Upon Tirhu and his sons of worthy lineage descended, Enlil set his gaze. This is the man to choose, by Galzu indicated, Enlil to himself said. Tanar, without the dream vision revealing, Enlil to his son thus said. In the land between the rivers whence Arbakad had come, a city like Urim established, a home abode away from Urim, let it for you and Ningal be. In its midst a temple shrine established, the priest Prince Tirhu in charge thereof appoint. By his father's word abiding, Nanar in the land of Arbakad, the city of Haran established. To be high priest in its temple shrine, Tirhu his family with him. When 2 celestial portions out of the prophecies 3 were complete, did Tirhu to Haran go. At that time Ur-Nammu, the joy of Urim in the western lands, from his chariot fell and died. On the throne of Urhim his son Shogi him succeeded. Full of vile and eager for battle Shogi was. In Nibrukai himself, high priest he anointed, in Unukai the joys of Inanna's vulva he sought. Warriors from the mountain lands to Nanar not beholden, in his army he enlisted. With their help the western lands he overran, the sanctity of Mission Control Center he ignored. In the sacred 4th region his foot he set, the king of the 4 regions himself he declared. About the defilements, Enlil was angered. About the invading, Enki to Enlil spoke. The rulers of your region all bounds have exceeded, Enki to Enlil bitterly said. Of all the troubles, Marduk is the fountainhead, Enlil to Enki retorted. Still the dream vision to himself keeping, Enlil to Tirhu his attention turned. Upon Ibru the eldest son of Tirhu, Enlil cast the choosing gaze. A princely offspring, valiant and with priestly secrets acquainted, Imram was. To protect the sacred places, the chariots and ascents and descents enable, Enlil Ibram to go commanded. No sooner did Ibram from Haran depart than in that city Marduk arrived. The defilements he too had observed, as birth pangs of a new order he them deemed. From Haran, look at that, the New World Order. From Haran on the threshold of Shumer, his final thrust he planned. From Haran at the edge of Ishkar's domain situated, the raising of armies he directed. When 24 and 4 earth years of his sojourn in Haran had passed, Marduk to the other gods, of whomever descended, tearfully an appeal made. Confessing his transgressions, but insisting on his lordship, to them he thus said, O gods of Haran, O great gods who judge, learn my secrets. As I girdle my belt, my memories I remember. I am the divine Marduk, a great god. In my domains as Ra I am known. From my sins to exile I went. To the mountains have I gone. In many lands have I wandered. From where the sun rises to where the sun sets I went. To the land of Ishkar I came. 24 years in the midst of Haran I nested. An omen in its temple I sought. Until when about my lordship an omen in the temple I asked. Your days of exile are completed, to me the oracle in the temple said. O great God, who the fates determine, let me to my city set my course. My temple Esagil as an everlasting abode establish, a king in Babel install. In my temple house let all the Anunnaki gods assemble, my covenant accept. So did Marduk, confessing and appealing to the other gods, his coming announce. By his appeal for their submission, the Anunnaki gods were disturbed and alarmed. To a great assembly counsel to take, Enlil them all summoned. All the Anunnaki leaders in New Berkai gathered. Enki and Marduk's brothers also came. About the happenings, all of them were agitated. Opposed to Marduk and Nabu, they all were. In the council of the great gods, accusations were rampant. Recriminations filled the chamber. What is coming no one can prevent. Let us Marduk's supremacy accept, Enki alone counseled. If the time of the ram is coming, let us Marduk of the bond of heaven earth deprive, Enlil in anger proposed. To obliterate the place of the celestial chariots, all except Enki agreed. To use therefore the weapons of terror, Nergal suggested. Only Enki was opposed. Of the decision, earth to Anu, the words pronounced, Anu to earth, the words repeated. What was destined to be, by your decision to undo will fail, so did Enki say as he departed. The evil thing to carry out, Ninurta and Nergal were selected. Now this is the account how fate to destiny did lead, how step by step, some in long forgotten times taken, the great calamity made happen. Now let it for all time be recorded and remembered. When the decision to use the weapons of terror was made, to himself Enlil 2 secrets kept. To no one before the terrible decision taken did Enlil the secret of Galzil's dream vision reveal. To no one until the fateful decision was made did Enlil his knowledge of the terror's hiding place disclose. When despite all protestations the council to use the weapons of terror permitted, when Enki, angry and distraught, the council chamber left, in his heart was Enki smiling. Only he knew where the weapons were hidden, so did Enki think. For it was he, before Enlil to earth had come, who with Abgal in a place unknown the weapons did hide. That Abgal to the exiled Enlil the place disclosed, that to Enki it was unknown. When Enki this second secret heard, in his heart a wishful thought he harbored, that after such a long sojourn the weapon's terror would have evaporated. Little did Enki expect the long sojourn a calamity as never before known on earth to cause. Thus was it that without Enki needing Enlil to the two heroes, the hiding place disclosed. Those 7 weapons of terror in a mountain they abide, to them Enlil said. In a cavity inside the earth they dwell, with the terror to clad them is required. Then the secret of how the weapons from their deep sleep awaken, Enlil to them did reveal. Before the 2 sons, one of Enlil, one of Enki, to the hiding place departed. Enlil to them words of forewarning said, ere the weapons are used, by the Anunnaki must the chariot's place be vacated. The cities must be spared, and the people must not perish. In his skyship, Nergal to the hiding place soared, Ninurta by his father was delayed. A word to his son alone Enlil wished to say, a secret to him alone reveal. About the prophecy of Gazu and the choosing of Ibram to Ninurta he told. Is that Libram? Hard to say. Ibram. Hot-headed is Nergal, and make sure that the cities are spared, that Ibram is forewarned, to Ninurta, Enlil said. When Ninurta at the weapon's place arrived, Nergal from the cavity had already taken them brought out. As their enemies from the long slumber he awakened, to each one of the 7 Nergal a task name gave. The one without rival was the first he called, the blazing flame the second, the one who with terror crumbles the third, mountain melter the fourth. Wind that the rim of the world seeks he named the 5th, and the one who above and below no one spares was the 6th. The 7th with monstrous venom was filled, vaporizer of living things he called it. With Anu's blessing were the 7 to Nergal and Ninurta given, therewith to destruction wreak. When Ninurta at the place of weapons of terror arrived, to destroy and annihilate was Nergal ready. I shall kill the son, I will annihilate the father, Nergal with vengeance was shouting. The lands they cover will banish, the sinning cities I will upheaval, so did Nergal, enraged, announce. Valiant Nergal, will you the righteous with the unrighteous destroy? So did Ninurta his comrade ask. The instructions of Enlil are clear. To the selected targets the way I will lead, you behind me will follow. The decision of the Anunnaki to me is known, Nergal to Ninurta said. For 7 days and 7 nights the signal from Enlil the 2 awaited. As was his attention, when his waiting was complete, Marduk to Babel returned. In the presence of his followers, with weapons armed, his supremacy he declared. 1,736 was the count of Earth years then. On that day, that fateful day, Enlil to Ninurta the signal sent. To Mount Mashu Ninurta departed, behind him Nergal followed. The mountain, the plain, in the heart of the 4th region, Ninurta from the skies surveyed. With a squeezing in his heart, to Nergal a sign he gave. Keep off, to him he signaled. Then the first terror weapon from the skies, Ninurta let loose. The top of Mount Mashu with a flash it sliced off. The mountain's innards in an instant it melted. Above the place of the celestial chariots, the second weapon he unleashed. With the brilliance of 7 suns, the plain's rocks into a gushing wound were made. The earth shook and crumbled. The heavens, after the brilliance, were darkened. With burnt and crushed stones was the plains of the chariots covered. Of all the forests that the plain had surrounded, only tree stems were left standing. It is done, Ninurta from the sky shipped, his black divine bird words shouted. The control that Marduk and Nabu so coveted, of it will they are forever deprived. Then to emulate Ninurta and Nergal desired, to be Era the Annihilator his heart him urged. Following the king's highway to the verdant valley of the 5 cities he flew. In the verdant valley where Nabu the people were converting, Nergal as a caged bird to squash him planned. Over the 5 cities, one after another, Era upon each from the skies a terror weapon sent. The 5 cities of the valley he finished off. To desolation they were overturned. With fire and brimstone they were upheavaled. All that lived there to vapor was turned. By the awesome weapons were mountains toppled. Where the sea waters were barred, the bolt broke open. Down into the valley the sea's waters poured. By the waters was the valley flooded. When upon the city's ashes the waters poured, steam to the heavens was rising. It is done, Era in his skyship shouted. In Nergal's heart there was no more vengeance. Surveying their evil handiwork, the two heroes by what they saw were puzzled. By a darkening of the skies where the brilliances followed, then a storm to blow began. Swirling within a dark cloud, gloomed from the skies, an evil wind carried. As the day wore on, the sun on the horizon with darkness the cloud obliterated. At night time, a dreaded brilliance skirted its edges. The moon at its rising it made disappear. When dawn the next morning came, from the west, from the upper sea, a storm wind began blowing. The dark brown cloud eastward it directed, toward the settled lands did it spread. Wherever it reached, death to all that lives, mercilessly it delivered. From the valley of no pity, by the brilliance's spawn, toward Schumer the death was carried. To Enlil, Enki, Ninurta, and Nergal the alarm sounded. Unstoppable, the evil wind, death to all it delivers. Passover. The alarm Enlil and Enki to the gods of Schumer transmitted. Escape, escape, to them all they cried out. Let the people disperse, let the people hide. From their cities the gods did flee, like frightened birds from their nests escaping they were. The people of the lands by the evil storm hands were clutched. Futile was the running. Stealthy was the death. Like a ghost the fields and cities it attacked. The highest walls, the thickest walls, like floodwaters it passed. No door could shut it out. No bolt could turn it back. Those who behind locked doors hid inside their houses like flies were felled. Those who to the streets fled, in the streets their corpses piled up. Cough and phlegm in the chests spilled, the mouths with spittle and foam filled up. As the evil wind the people unseen engulfed, their mouths were drenched with blood. Slowly over the lands the evil wind blew, from west to east over plains and mountains it traveled. Everything that lived behind it was dead and dying. People and cattle all alike perished. The waters were poisoned. In the fields all the vegetation withered. From Eridu in the south to Sippar in the north did the evil wind the land overwhelm. Babel, where Marduk's supremacy declared by the evil wind, was spared. Babel, where Marduk's supremacy declared by the evil wind, was spared. All the lands south of Babel the evil wind devoured. The heart of the second region it also touched. When in the aftermath of the great calamity, Enlil and Enki to survey the havoc met. Enki to Enlil the sparing of Babel as a divine omen considered. The Marduk to supremacy has been destined, by the sparing of Babel is confirmed, so did Enki to Enlil say. The will of the creator of all it must have been, Enlil to Enki said. Then to him the dream, vision, and prophecy of Galzu Enlil revealed. If that by you was known, why do you use the weapons of terror not prevent? Enki asked. My brother, Enlil to Enki with a sorrowed voice said. Enough seen was the reason. Whenever after your coming to earth the mission by an obstacle obstructed was, away the obstruction to circumnavigate we have found. Of that the fashioning of the earthlings the greatest solution, also the fountain of a myriad of unwanted twists and turns it was. When you have the celestial cycles fathomed and the constellations assigned, who in them the hands of destiny could foresee? Who could between our chosen fates and our unbending destiny distinguish? Who false omens proclaim? Who true prophecies could pronounce? Therefore to keep to myself the words of Galzu I decided. Was he truly the creator of all's emissary? Was he my hallucination? Let whatever has to happen, happen, so to myself I said. To his brother's words Enki listened, his head up and down he nodded. The first region is desolate, the second is in confusion, the third is wounded. The place of celestial chariots is no more, that is what has happened, Enki to Enlil said. If that was the will of the creator of all, that is what our mission to earth remained. By the ambitions of Marduk was the seed sown. What the crop resulted is for him to reap. So did Enlil to his brother Enki say. then heed the triumph of Marduk accepted. Let the rank of 50 by me for Ninurta intended to Marduk instead be given. Let Marduk over the desolation in the regions his supremacy declare. As for me and Ninurta, we will in his way no longer stand. To the lands beyond the oceans we will depart. What we had all come for, the mission to obtain for Nibiru the gold we will complete. So did Enlil to Enki say. Dejection was in his words. Would different matters have been were the weapons of terror unused? Enki his brother challenged. Should we have the words of Galzu to Nibiru not return heeded? Enlil retorted. Should Earth's mission have been stopped when the Anunnaki mutinied? I did what I did, you did what you did. The past undone cannot become. Is not in that too a lesson? Enki asked them both. Now see, the ulama have a little bit of a different view as far as that goes, and the Ramashad speaks very much about the past very well being able to be undone by the Anunnaki. So it's an interesting contrast. Is not what on earth happened, what on Nibiru had taken place mirrored? Is not in that tale of the past the outline of the future written? When mankind in our image created, our attainments and failures repeat. Enlil was silent. As he stood up to leave, Enki to him his arm extended. Let us lock arm as brothers, as comrades who together challenges on an alien planet confronted. So did Enki to his brother say. And Enlil, grasping his brother's arm, hugged him as well. Shall we meet again on Earth or on Nibiru? Enki asked. Was Galzu right that we die to Nibiru go? Enlil responded. Then he turned and departed.
Okay, bro, you get on the sidewalk. You think that's okay? Check his pulse.
Check his right
Charles, check his pulse.
Get back on the sidewalk.
The man ain't moved yet, bro. The man ain't moved yet, bro.
Okay, where?
Minneapolis!
Okay.
Bro,
okay.
you're a bum, bro.
Okay.
You're a bum, bro. You're
Check
definitely
his
a
pulse right
bum,
now. Tell
bro.
me what it is. Tell me what his pulse is right now.
Check his pulse. Bro, he has not moved not one time, bro. Go back to the store, bro. Go back to the store, bro. He's not fucking.
I see that.
Bro, you don't need to help me out, bro. I know your parents, I know everybody at home. You don't need to help me the fuck out, bro. He's not fucking moving right now, bro.
I just saw that, huh?
Bro, he was just moving when I walked up here.
Yeah, I know that.
Came a long way from Cain, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah. Long way from Cain, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah. Came a long way from Cain, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah. Cain, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah. Came a long way from Cain, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah. Came a long way from
They don't care about you. I didn't got no time. I ain't got no reason to grind.
We was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah.
Turn it off. If it don't sound right when you're kicking it, just turn it off. Just turn it off. If it don't feel right when you're thinking, turn it off. Just turn it off. Just turn it off. Just turn it off. If it don't sound right when you're digging it.
Borrowed jewels, keep playing, I still got army tools, all these goons, and guns stashed in the kitchen, in the laundry room. Why would I acknowledge you? Why? You got a team full of ninja fools with cheap guns and borrowed jewels. Keep playing, I still got army tools, all these goons, and guns stashed in the tools. Armed guns and guns and guns and guns. You got a team full of ninja fools with cheap guns and borrowed jewels. Keep playing, I still got army tools, all these goons, and guns stashed in the kitchen, in the laundry room. Why would I acknowledge you? Why?
Came a long way from Kane, he was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah. Came a long way from Kane, he was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, yeah.
Kelly O. External on the beat. I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you to mama. I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you. So where you did, tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not there, I want it. So where you did, tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not there, I want it. This where you did. Tell me where you did. I go lap you did. Just tell me where you did. I go give all the girl them backspace. You will enter my queen shipper. You did to stop the boys for Insta. Mona Lista, hasta la vista. Yeah. Say what you want, I go buy for two. Do anything for you. I go carry you. Show you what I'm in. So where you did? Tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not day I one day. Anywhere you did. Tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not day I one day. I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you to mama. I've been looking for you. I've been searching for you. I've been calling your number. I want to take you. So where you did, tell me where you did. Anywhere you did. Not there, I want that. Caliport. Real sound, no faking. Smoke city wall. That smoke say yeah.
B-Star, the naughty oracle.
I've been junkie, I've been thinking my life. I got so many reasons, I got to be alright. What I done for my eye, I no feel sleep for night. I did take time, I did take in my life. I'm married to the grind where I did my time, because you got my tea. I know the track that they my side. Chocolate them house, they give me wicked swine. So many things I know fit denying. I don't bother get the things I know fit divide. On a long road, biggie man live a long story. Keep your long notes, advice I be making no tell me. When your girl won't follow me, no remedy, she got wine for that day. I know be good for nothing. When she sit on my thing, she go know I'm nothing. Oh mama, the party shaded. So many friends don't show me shake it. Every day not to step up my game. At the time I base, but they notice my name. I know the track that they my side. Chocolate them house, they give me wicked swine. So many things I know fit denying. I don't bother get the things I know fit divide. On a long road, biggie man live a long story. Keep your long notes. Advice I sabi make you not tell me.
Big vibe. DJ Patma. Baby, give me one dance, baby, give me one dance tonight. Yeah. Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Baby, give me one dance, baby, give me one dance tonight. Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. I put my mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce on me, shawty. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Hey, I wonder what you are, hey. Shake on for the morning. I wanna dance up your body. Why your waist make I spend the rubber? Shawty say make I spend the dollar. If I do too short, and me I'm a too short. Somebody, I will take you tsunami. I will take you to Paris. Somebody. Baby, give me one dance, baby, give me one dance tonight. Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. I put my mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce on me, shawty. My mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce on me, shawty.
Ride for me, die for me. You said that you gon' take your time with me. So why all these niggas come spy on me? You say I'm the queen, but you lie to me. Am I yours? Are you mine? Or are we passing time? I don't know. I feel high. You got me on a timeline. So call it for me now. Do it once. Baby, give me one dance, baby, give me one dance tonight. Yeah.
Baby, we could all over, baby, we could all over tonight. Yeah. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. Tonight, oh, hey. I put my mind for the money. Come dance for the money. I take you down to my mommy. Come bounce on me, shawty. My mind for the money. I take you down to my mommy.
So call it for me now. Do it once. So call it for me now. Do it once. So call it for me. Do it once. So call it for me now. Yeah.
Shiva Shambho Swayambho Bo Shiva Shambho Swayambho Bo Shiva Shambho Swayambho Bo Shiva Shambho Swayambho Swayam
ziggy zag.